it's they've added a lot of guys that can do exactly what Turpin does. And you can talk about Blue, and obviously he's been highlighted in the receiving game as well too. But in special teams, what you need him to do. I'm not buying the gunner talk that he had at the press conference. He's talking about Blue gunner and returner yes, gunner. I don't know about that one, Shoddy, but neither here nor there on that one. But yeah, you look at the Tyler Johnsons of the world. The slot wide receiver, return guy. We just signed somebody today with all the speed in the world, right? Former second round pick that people played with in Denzel Mims, and he can do some return things for you. So yeah, there's a lot of guys that either whether they do the speed stuff, or they do return stuff that bring things to the table. I think it's important. I think it's very important for Turpin to have a good camp. I don't think it's just a given. Last year, this time, we were talking about the wide receiver core and who was going to make like the 53. It's like, okay, well, Turp's in the building now. Who's going to be next, right? I think that's where we were. I don't feel the same this year heading after OTAs and minicamp and headed towards Oxnard in July. I don't know if that's the case for Turpin this year. I think he needs to have a good camp. Could be wrong, but I'm looking at what they're adding. Something we talked about on the channel here. I'm like, well, they're going to add. To me, they were adding a certain type of wide receiver because of the quarterback battle that they've talked about. With it's going to be Joe Milton versus Sam Howell, and Shotty kind of talked about that as pressure today. But on top of that, just look at the guys that they've added and the things they can do. I don't think it's just a given for Turpin this year like it was last year.
Yeah, and I'm willing to give Turpin a little bit of grace on last year. Special teams wise, was not a great season. He made some mistakes. The blocking was atrocious. Punt team blocking was the return team was atrocious. Kick return team was atrocious. It was all very bad, right? So I'm willing to give him some grace, but he has to prove because his thing is the return game, special teams, and his
Right.
added bonus is the speed on offense at receiver, wide
Right.
receiver 4, right? Even if you
The
don't
threat.
utilize it all the time, it's the threat of it, correct, right? And so you have that threat with those other guys that they've added, the speed element on offense, right? So now that leaves the special teams. So Turpin has to come out and prove in 2026 that he can be the guy that he was in 2024 as a return man, the threat that everybody feared across the league, and not necessarily what we saw in 2025. If he can't do that, and these other receivers can step up and maybe provide more consistency on the receiving front, not jumping to catch, slants and better hands and all that. Turpin, I fear that he might be the odd man out. I really do. But I'm willing to give him kind of the head start come camp in that return game to see, how that goes, and maybe even a couple of preseason games. And if he's not, doing what he's supposed to do in the preseason, then, maybe we can have that conversation.
Yeah, like I said, I'm not. I mean, by no means or shape am I campaigning for him not to make the roster. Right? I'm
Sure.
just
Yeah.
just looking at what they've added, what they've done, and the inconsistency of him in the return game last year. Whether we're fair catching inside the 10, we're letting it bounce on the 12. Just things that we just haven't seen from him, and that should be his calling card. That's what he is. He's all pro. Where it's at when it comes to it. So yeah, I just think just he's a good camp. I think there's some guys that'll get opportunities, and I think it was you or Double A when we were in the space said all it takes is in how we react. One of these other guys gets a huge return, in preseason. It's like, oh, we'll see there you go, and what it looks like and whatnot. But we'll see. Again, I don't know if I go as far. Let me put. How about this? Here's a better way to. I'll put a cherry on it or a cap on it. I'm not going all the way to say that he's on the bubble,
Sure.
but I don't think he's far away from being on the bubble, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, he's on the bubble that's on the bubble. Yeah.
Yeah, the bubble,
He's
double
at
bubble.
risk. He's at risk. He's
Yeah,
his seat is heating up, I guess we could say.
there it is. Yeah, it's getting a little, it's getting a little heated. Yeah, the seat's getting a little heated.
Cowboys Nation, stay